What's up, my fellow Michiganians, Michiganders, whatever you happen to call yourselves? Welcome to Wolverine State Sports Talk. Well, the first trimester is over for Michigan football, and I think it's time that we assign some grades. But unfortunately, I can't do that. I don't have the certification, so I'm going to have to call on my good friend, Professor Pugh, to make some of these grades. All right, Professor, come in the room. Thank you. And thank you, Jim Harbaugh, for giving me, all your players, their time and attention, and for giving me an opportunity for some evaluation. Now, some of you guys did very well this weekend. Some of you guys did not do so hot. But one thing I can tell you is that every single one of you is capable of being better than you were. And every single one of you is capable of earning an A by the end of the year. Some of you will take more work than others. But this team can absolutely be a Big Ten championship team. I still believe that. My opinion on that has not changed, even after a week that might have been a little bit underwhelming. So, let's start with our grades. So, let's start with our first grade of the afternoon, quarterback position. So, this game, we only had one quarterback play for the first time this season, and that was J.J. McCarthy. So, in his first start, I gave him a B-, an 80. Some good things I saw. I liked his intermediate passing game. Did a nice job hitting Schoonmaker over the middle, hit Cornelius Johnson in the flat, Roman Wilson over the middle. I think that he has a good feel for some of these throws and good anticipation. So that's definitely a plus. He can deliver an accurate ball 15 to 20 yards down the field and make the right read there. And then there was also a time where he scrambled for the first down. So his athletic ability definitely contributes to the higher grade. But this is the biggest problem I had. And this is part of being a young quarterback that he's going to need to work on. He missed a couple of checkdowns. One in particular, the one where he fumbled and lost 15 yards, which caused us to miss a field goal right before the half. So Blake Corum was actually wide open as a checkdown option. But J.J. McCarthy is looking downfield, and then he makes a very awkward spin move. So right as Blake Corum gets open and could have gotten, honestly, a pretty decent play, J.J. McCarthy spins around, loses sight of Blake Corum, who suddenly gets covered. And the next thing you know, he's running for his life, fumbles the football, and Michigan gets it back but misses the field goal right after that. Loses 15 yards. So on that play alone, that play was a 25 to 28 yard difference just by fumbling that football. If Blake Corum would have caught that, he could have made a big play. So that's one big thing. And there were a couple other times as well where he did not hit the check down guy. Too focused on deep down the field, forced a couple of throws. Can't have that happen. And let's address the elephant in the room. Missed a bunch of deep passes. The good news is J.J. McCarthy definitely has the arm strength to make those throws. It's all about timing, and I think he's going to be able to get that down. Now that he's the clear-cut starter, he's going to get more repetitions with these guys in practice, and I expect this to be an area of improvement this year because J.J. does have the arm strength to make these throws. And again, it's all about timing. And then you can't fumble the football twice. That's a no-no. But, JJ, you still passed the test, so we'll give you that. Next up, the running back position. And I'll tell you what, on these group projects, man, we can't keep having all the other members slack off and one person doing all the work. You know what I'm talking about. The one kid that does all the work while everybody else sits back in the corner going, pretty good. Nice that we'll get an A because we know this guy's good at what he's doing. That guy was Blake Corum. Blake Corum pretty much carried the load. Isaiah Gash and C.J. Stokes made next to no contribution. In fact, a negative contribution as C.J. Stokes actually fumbled the football. So we really need more out of those two guys. We can't expect Blake Corum to be a bell cow. But otherwise, it goes without saying, Blake Corum was excellent. And because he put the whole unit on his back. We did run for 243 yards, so that's a kudos to Blake Corum. And so I give this group an A, a 96. Would have given it an A+ had C.J. Stokes not fumbled the football and gotten a few more carries. Now let's get on to the next position group, the wide receiver position. And I gave these guys a B+. So they did have opportunities for big plays as Andrew Anthony got open down the field. Roman Wilson got open a couple of times. Really, they should have had a better game than they actually did because J.J. missed those throws. And the hope is that he's going to be able to make those throws in the future. But in terms of getting open there, the receivers did their job on those few plays. But this is my biggest problem with this unit. When they run their routes sometimes and the first option is not open, They tend to stop and jog, almost like they're confused whether to block or whether to keep running the route, but they don't try to find the open space. I saw one play on tape where J.J. McCarthy almost threw the interception. Cornelius Johnson has the middle of the field wide open. So he runs a zig route, but really should have been a slant route if he was aware of where the open space on the field was. So maybe that's a problem with coaching, or maybe it's a problem with Cornelius Johnson not seeing the field clearly. Otherwise, I think this is a good unit. I think overall this could be an A- unit. They'll look better once JJ completes some of those deep balls, which I believe that he will. Next up, we got the tight end group, and I gave these guys a pretty good grade. Luke Schoonmaker and Bredesen, both those guys were terrific. I gave them an A- though because Schoonmaker did have one drop that was pretty costly, honestly, because we could have gotten a touchdown in that drive. But that really took us out of our rhythm, and next thing you know, it's 3rd and long, and our receivers weren't getting open downfield because Maryland was playing very deep coverage. So for tight ends, I'll give this group an A-. They're doing a great job as usual, and as much as I want Eric All to come back, I really like watching Luke Schoonmaker play. He gets open in the flat, he can get open over the middle, and he's a good safety net to check down to. So, and he's also a very, very good blocker. So, great job by this group today, A-. Offensive line. Congratulations, you win our Golden Star for Unit of the Week. Great job, guys. I decided to give you an A+. I don't think there's any debate there. Although you did give up a couple sacks, J.J. McCarthy had all day to throw. And actually one of those sacks was on Blake Corum because he missed the block. But the other sack was J.J. McCarthy taking way too long in the pocket. The reality is J.J., honestly, I think even he was surprised with how much time he had. And then run blocking was absolutely terrific. Blake Corum had gaping holes all day. Bust him for big gains, but even then we were able to run the ball consistently. So offensive line gets an A+. And I don't even think we had any negative running plays. We might have, but we made up for it big time. So offense overall, B+. I think there's a lot of room for growth, but at the same time, we did score 34 points, albeit not against a great defense, but we left a lot of opportunities on the field. I got to give us credit for being able to get those opportunities because that means that we have some talent, but we got to convert on those opportunities. So we can convert on those. This is easily an A+ type unit. Now we got to move to the other side of the ball. And this is where we're going to see some lower grades. But we'll get off with a good start. And this one might surprise some of you watching this video. Defensive tackle. I gave this unit a B+ or an 89. And when you go back and watch the film, I know sometimes you have to watch the film again to see what the D tackles are doing. I'll say this. Chris Jenkins and Mozzie Smith are both absolute beasts at defensive tackle. Both those guys did a great job of shedding blocks, and you know, it did kind of feel like Maryland had a big day running the football, but they actually didn't. On traditional handoffs to the running back, Maryland had 3.68 yards per carry on traditional handoffs. So they had 25 carries for 92 yards from traditional handoffs. The rest of the rush yards were through scrambles. So like Talia, getting out of the pocket, the backup quarterback busting that one 18-yard run, which really wasn't that much on the defensive line anyway. So that's why I'm using the traditional run stats. And the truth is, you know, even Rashad Benny had an opportunity to tackle, but you're going to see a theme here. Tackling was a problem today. And I know that tackling is difficult in this day and age because you can't really practice it full speed anymore with the rules and regulations, you know, the safety concerns. So this is definitely a good rep. Or good group of, excuse me. Good bunch of reps for this defensive group who hasn't really played a real opponent all season until now. And the good news is they're going to get a pretty weak offense next week. But I gave this group a B+ because the pass rush wasn't really there. Mozzie got a couple pressures, but at the same time, you don't really expect defensive tackles to get pressures. So they did their job. They did a nice yeoman's work. B+ for them. Now here's where the grades are going to start to drop a little bit. Defensive end. I think this is a group that can be much better than the way they played. And I think that now that we've played 4 games, we have a good idea of who our best players are. But for this week, I gave this group a C+. And it can be much, much better. the main takeaway is I think that Mike Morris and Abayi Oki, they need more snaps. It's really that simple. Those guys showed great explosiveness off the ball. Oftentimes, especially Oki, he's oftentimes the first guy off the ball if you watch the film. He got in the quarterback's face several times. This guy is a 5-star athlete, and you can see it on the film. He could have easily had some more sacks had our secondary not broken down late, but he had a very nice game. Mike Morris just has incredible speed for his size. I don't know how he was able to make that chase down tackle on Talia Tagovailoa. But otherwise, I think this is the main problem with this group. And especially with Braden McGregor, I don't think we're using him correctly. I think we're relying too much on blitzing, and this is what I really don't like. So you can't really see it from here, so I'm going to get on the bed. When our defensive line gets in a stance, I prefer to get in a 2-point stance like this, or like this, we're off the edge ready to go. Instead, we have our defensive ends, Braden McGregor and Mike Morris a couple times too, lined up like this. And the truth is, I don't really like this stance. Because you know what happens oftentimes when they get out of it, watching the film? They're like this, trying to decipher if it's the run, and then they try to make pass rush moves. I'll tell you this. You don't get any momentum in your pass rush, it's over. This offensive line for Maryland is very good, and the reality is we're not good enough to just knock hands all over the place without using our feet. That's what it feels like. We're not really using our feet on the defensive line. And I'd like to see McGregor line up in a 2-point stance much more often, and I want to see these guys just fire off the ball. In the second half, first half we didn't get any pressure, and I think that's because we were hesitant off the ball, worried if it was run or pass or trying to contain Talia. But I'll say this, once we were able to fire off the ball at full speed, we were able to create a lot more pressure. So I think this is a group that has a lot more talent than the way they've been playing. I do like Upshaw and McGregor on run downs, but on pass downs, I like Oki, Harrell, and Morris. I think those are the 3 main guys you got to play on passing downs. So if we can make those substitutions, we absolutely should. But this is a group I need to see more out of, and honestly, this is probably the second most concerning group of the team thus far, overall. Yeah, this group did not play well. And this group did not play very well last year either. Linebackers. I think this is also a group actually that has some good talent, but they did not play well. I gave them a C. And part of it was the tackling issue. Watch the tape. There's many times where Nick Mullins and Junior Colson are in position to make tackles, but Mullins had a great opportunity at one, and the running back just bounced right off him for a 16-yard run, and he was met at the line of scrimmage. The problem with Colson is he did not engage once he ran into the running back, so he kind of just, met him, but didn't engage his feet at all. Almost like Barney trying to give a great big hug and a kiss from me to you, I don't know. But you got to engage when you get into a guy. And I understand there's linemen all over the place, but this might come with reps too, because Nick Mullins is a very young player, and I think he has good speed. He was in position most of the game. I think he got better as the game went along too, so there is some hope for this group. But that missed tackle early, and a few others by Junior Colson, arm tackling. Junior Colson's big problem is that he gets flat-footed too often, and it doesn't put him in great position to make a tackle. On Maryland's only rushing touchdown of the day, Junior Colson literally did this. And I think it's because he's flat-footed, playing tentative. He plays hard. Don't get that mistaken. But when you're flat-footed, it's very hard to make tackles. So that's really the main thing these guys need to work on is tackles. A few times they miss their gaps, but that's to be expected early in the season against a good football team with a really good offensive line. So the reason why I'm just hammering these two groups so much is because they were areas of concern before the season. But I think they can be better than what they played. Otherwise, the linebackers, I gave them a pretty low grade because they failed to read screens. Maryland got some huge plays off of screens, and that's on the linebackers for not reading it. And there was also blown coverage late. Nick Mullins, on Maryland's last touchdown, Nick Mullins is literally pointing over to Junior Colson what the heck to do, And then Maryland snaps the ball right as he's doing that, and the tight end gets wide open for a 12-yard touchdown. And then next thing you know, this game is a lot closer than it should have been. So I think this is a group that'll get better. I think it's due to communication. They just need more reps. But They did settle in nicely in the second half outside of that one blown coverage. I think Colson and Mullins both have talent. They both have good speed. They're pretty physical. Just need some more game time reps. And we might be good. Michael Barrett as well. I forgot to mention that name. All right, next up. Defensive back. I gave this group an A-. And the big thing is they didn't really give up a lot of catches to Maryland wide receivers. I thought they did a pretty nice job locking him down. DJ Turner was absolutely terrific. I think he's the best corner on this team. Mike Sanders still is an animal out there. And Jemin Green is a great third option as well. So overall, they did a nice job. Green got beat a couple of times, but both of those weren't really due to talent. The first time, he just ran into a clump of linebackers at the middle of the field, and the Maryland receiver got wide open for a slant touchdown. There was one time Sanders still got beat, but I think that was more due to communication than talent. Sanders still has all the talent in the world as a defensive player. I got to give Jim Harbaugh a lot of credit for giving Mike Sanders still an opportunity to play defense, because he's done a good job of evaluating talent. Hassan Haskins came in as a defensive player, played running back, and was pretty darn good at it. Now Mike Sanders still comes in as a wide receiver. Jim Harbaugh says, hey, we need you on defense. So clearly Jim Harbaugh finds the right position for these guys that come in as athletes. So kudos to him there. He's showing some real ingenuity as a head coach. So I think the secondary is very, very good, especially if we avoid the injury bug. I think we have two really great players, and then Will Johnson is someone who's also could be a budding star as well, but he's young, he needs some time. Not worried about him. Safety position, this is a pretty good unit. They did a nice job today. Because I didn't really hear the names, I didn't really hear the name of R.J. Moten. That means they did a good job. Maryland got a couple of big plays, but they didn't go for much more yards. I can't give this group an A+, though, because Rod Moore did get beat over the middle, but he's a really good player that I like as a hybrid. And R.J. Moten's just Mr. Consistent. Doesn't get beat deep, doesn't give up big stuff, and that's going to be huge when we play Ohio State, because that's what they make their money off of. So overall, I'm going to give this defense a B. Front seven really needs to get better, but I think if they make some of those technical changes, they could be a little bit better, Just lining up in a way that'll make them explosive off the football. That's a huge deal. Really just playing more with reckless abandon, and I like Jesse Minter so far, but one thing I will say is this. When you blitz and you play gimmicky defense all the time, it kind of displays a lack of confidence in your defensive players. I almost would prefer we just line up, play traditional defense, kind of like Pat Narduzzi did with Michigan State. Don't try to confuse the opponent. Just go right at them. Four-man rush, we're better than you. The problem is when you blitz, you create opportunities for big plays. And Maryland could have taken bigger advantage of it, honestly. There were many times we blitzed Jemin Green, blitzed Mike Sanders still, and I don't really like living off the blitz. I'd rather use it from time to time. But overall, I think we need our front four to be better in the pass rush so that we don't have to blitz all the time. So that's a part of it as well. Otherwise, that's the end of our grading session. So thank you guys for joining in, and I'm out for the day. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Pugh. So my takeaway from all that is Michigan, all the goals that they set before this season, they should still believe in them. This Michigan team is still capable of winning the Big Ten championship, beating Ohio State, and getting to the college football playoff. My opinion did not change after that game against Maryland. This weekend, I can only see it be tricky because it's being played in Kinnick Stadium, which is a death trap. But I think we match up pretty well in this game. Iowa's offense is absolutely abysmal. I think Michigan's defense won't have any problem with them. Maryland is much more talented. Big thing is, though, can we avoid the turnovers? Because that's really where we're going to lose this game. If we do lose, it's going to be because of turnovers. So that's got to be a point of emphasis. I don't have a crystal ball to say whether JJ will avoid the turnovers this week or next week, but it's going to be a low-scoring slugfest, but I got Michigan winning. I'll say 21-7 final score, which would ironically be the most points Iowa's given up all year. So if it's a low-scoring game, it's not time to blame the offense. Really, the big thing is we want to avoid turnovers, and I think we have a pretty good offensive system for that because we can line up and run the football on you. So Michigan should win this game, but Kinnick Stadium, there's no guarantee with that pink locker room. All right, thank you all for listening. Go Blue. I'll get the report cards out earlier next week so that you know what the state of this program is. Y'all have a good one. Or not me, sorry, Professor Pugh. Yeah. I'm not Professor Pugh. We're two completely different people, you know.